Today, we are going to make some grass. No, I'm not in Colorado, so it's not going to be that kind of grass. It's our techniques that are so simple and sensible, your mothers have practically built themselves. Hello folks, it's Mad Dog Merv. Today, this blustery day, we are headed to West Bountiful, Utah. Actually kind of the North Salt Lake area. And we are going to be investigating a strange piece of concrete just out in the middle of a field. There are actually several weird pieces of concrete in different parts of the state of Utah. And I'd like to talk about a couple of them that we are going to be visiting. These weird pieces of concrete are in the shape of an arrow. What on earth is that about? Well, these are navigation arrows, and we're going to learn a little bit about why they're there, how they got put there, and investigate and see what they look like today. So stick with us on this installment of the Mad Dog Murph Show, and we're going to talk a little bit about navigation arrows of Utah.
So here we are at a little parking area just off of Legacy Highway, 500 South and Bountiful exit, looking from south to north, panning from south to north, and up in this area about right here is where this arrow is that we want to look at. So here's our destination. You can see the parking lot right there in the middle of the map. And off to the left, the far left, down this little dirt road, and it's fenced off, there is a navigation arrow. One of these really cool concrete arrows. We're going to talk a little bit here in a minute about what they were and why they are there. But that's the place that I wanted to get to. Now, here's a view looking southeast, and you can actually see from the air the navigation arrow and what it looks like right by this little canal. Pretty interesting. What in the heck is a concrete arrow doing out in the middle of flipping nowhere? And the funny thing is it points to another arrow a little ways away. So why were they here, and who put them there? Well, in August of 1920, the United States opened its first coast-to-coast airmail delivery route. Keep in mind, this is just 60 years after the Pony Express closed up shop, which also went through Utah, by the way. There were no good aviation charts in those days because, well, I mean, come on, it's the beginning of flight, you know. So pilots had to eyeball their way across the country using landmarks. This meant that flying in bad weather was very difficult, and night flying was just about impossible. The Postal Service solved this problem with the world's first ground-based civilian navigation system. It was a series of lighted beacons that would extend from New York to San Francisco. Every 10 miles, about 700 of these across the nation actually, pilots would pass a 70-foot concrete arrow on the ground, which was painted a bright yellow. At the center of each arrow, there would be a 51-foot steel tower topped by a 1,000,000 candle power rotating beacon. Wow, that's bright. Below the rotating light were two course lights pointing towards and backward along the arrow. The course lights flashed a code to identify the beacon's number. If needed, a generator shed at the tail or the feather end of the arrow would power the beacon and the lights. By 1924, just a year after Congress funded it, the line of giant concrete markers stretched from Rock Springs, Wyoming to Cleveland, Ohio. The next summer, it reached all the way to New York and then extended all the way to San Francisco by 1929. Around 1926, the new aeronautics branch of the Department of Commerce proposed a 650-mile air route linking Los Angeles to Salt Lake City and passing through Washington County. It was designated as the Contract Airmail Route number 4. Western Air Express, before Western Airlines, Western Air Express Incorporated was awarded the contract to lay out the route and carry the mail. Their first flight was made in April of 1926 in a Douglas M2 airplane. By 1928, the route had been marked with the cement arrows and the beacon towers for navigation at night and in inclement weather. However, new advances in communication and navigation technology made the big arrows obsolete, and the Commerce Department decommissioned the beacons in the 1940s. The steel towers were torn down and went to the war effort. Today, only some of these weathered cement arrows without the yellow paint remain. I took this picture in St. George a few years ago. This is outside of La Quinta, looking west, and you can see right about where that tree is. Up on that ridge is where the arrow is that I walked to. And there's this really neat plaque there. Utah is rich in aviation history. The plaque reads, "The first regularly scheduled overland passenger flight in the U.S. was made by Western Air Express on May 23, 1926 from Salt Lake City to Los Angeles. This 50-foot concrete arrow was one of the 4 here in the St. George area, placed every 10 miles for navigation of mail and passenger planes. The steel posts held coal lamps to illuminate the arrows after dark." This is looking almost directly east from the arrow up on the hill. You can't quite see the La Quinta down, but you can see some of the buildings down there in the valley. And that's where I took that picture from down below. To get to that area down below, you take the Bloomington Hills exit and go through the roundabout. It's on the east side of the freeway. Here's probably a little bit better look at that area. On the extreme right of the photo, you can actually see the road that goes up to Bloomington Hills. Here's my little sidekick, Harold. He made the trek with me up the hill, up the rocks, which with those short little legs, it was kind of interesting to watch him climb over some of those rocks to get up there. But anyway, it was good exercise for him. And, he's my little buddy, and we go all sorts of places together. But here we are overlooking the Bloomington and the Bloomington Hills area of St. George. Now, if we look to the south, over Bloomington itself, this is the view that we had this beautiful day. Now, this is a very sharp cliff right in front of us. It's kind of hard to see that, but yeah, this was quite the drop off. I want to say, 60, 70 feet easily to the nearest level below us. So turning to the west, you can see the nice flat barren area out there to the west, and the mountains way out there in the distance is where the Virgin River runs, the Virgin River Gorge, out looking towards Nevada that way. You can see a few homes there on the far right hand side of this particular photograph, but supposedly 10 miles off that way there was another arrow. If we look to the north from where the arrow is, you can see that it's a very slow rise from the homes that are down there up to the area where the arrow is, so it's very easy to get to. Here's a view off over the water tank near the parking area there, and that's actually St. George proper. The cliff that I told you about earlier, looking down, I guess it's more than 70 feet. It's down there a ways, but anyway, the cliff right there by the, I think I'm standing on the arrow in this picture. Can you imagine flying in one of those early biplanes with the open cockpit, looking down to find this arrow? And remember, they only flew at a few hundred to 1,000 feet above the ground, so they were probably pretty easy to see, especially looking the direction that you're supposed to be flying. Which this particular one, this is the last view we have of it. This particular Bloomington overlook arrow is pointing 61.3 degrees from true north. So very beautiful place and very serene up there, I can tell you that. Anyway, about 10 miles or so, there's another arrow, and then 10 miles, there's another arrow. And hey, look at this. This looks just like the last one, but this is not. This is up in the Washington area, the Quail Creek Reservoir overlook area of southern Utah. Yeah, again, very peaceful and fairly easy to get to, actually. And you can imagine the little generator that was there and that 50-foot tower that's sitting there in the middle. It's kind of fun to stand there and imagine all that stuff. Anyway, there's one up by the Black Ridge, the New Harmony area. of Washington County. But this is the one there at Black Ridge. A little bit more difficult to get to, and it's in kind of rough shape. Okay, so in the Salt Lake County area, Tooele County area, there's other ones as well. This particular one just off the freeway out in Tooele County, that is actually pretty easy to get to. I haven't put the coordinates here. I want you to get online and start looking this stuff up and investigating more. This is just kind of a sample for you of these arrows and where they are. So, hey, thanks for joining us today.